The Toronto Maple Leafs are still trying to figure out one of their biggest problems, and that is the defense. And who could be the odd man out heading into the playoffs? It might not be who you think. We'll take a look at that in this video. And Easton Cowan is continuing to set not only OHL records, but CHL records and London Knights franchise records. So all of that and more in this episode of Leafs Digest. Welcome back to Leafs Digest. My name is Darius Domingues, and guys, we've noticed that about 80% of you watching our videos are not actually subscribed to the channel. So if you want to do yourself a favor, hit that subscribe button to stay up to date with everything Toronto Maple Leafs. And it's going to be very exciting heading down the stretch here because the playoffs are right around the corner. Probably less than a month away at this point. I mean, it's going to be roughly a month. They'll be starting. It should be game one. And who are the Leafs going to play? It could be Florida, could be Boston. I don't think the Leafs are going to move from their third position there in the Atlantic. So we'll see who they end up playing. It's going to be an interesting finish. But anyway, let's get into it. The Leafs, they have a problem, and it's Brodie's struggles on the blue line. It's become apparent, especially this week, that he could be the odd man out, or, you know, maybe just give him a break. Nick and I talked in a video yesterday. Go check that out if you want. There will be a link at the end of this video to check that out. So we talked about how he could be the odd man out. Maybe give him some rest, give him a break, because if you take a look at this, these are his stats from the summer. If you take a look, it's from June 19th, 2023, last summer. And the headline is already from JFresh, and I love JFresh and their charts. I mean, I don't like to put too much stock into it, but I do think these numbers have to tell a story. They do tell a story of a player. And the story was already, should the Leafs buy out T.J. Brodie with only 1 year left at this point on his contract? And I mean, his numbers on the JFresh chart no longer look like this either. So he has declined quite a bit. And obviously there's a lot going on in his personal life, and I don't want to get into that. There are stories out there. So if you want to figure out all about that, you can go check that out. But, you know, obviously he's dealing with a lot of off-ice issues. But in terms of play, the Leafs have to look at their options because he has been not great, especially as of recently. If you take a look at his game logs as well, let's, you know, just taking a look at his last 10, the one thing that stands out to me is not only the plus minus, because I think plus minus, you know, you can't put too much into that sometimes, is the time on ice. He is playing north of 20 minutes every game, and especially in the last game, he had no blocks, no hits against Carolina. Actually, he's had no hits in quite a few games. I mean, he is not really, when it comes to playoffs, I know not everyone throws hits, and you can't look at, you know, just only him to be throwing the hits. Obviously, everybody has to be. But the last couple of games, and, you know, small sample size if we bring it back up here, he hasn't been fantastic, and it's just the time on ice that stands out to me. Maybe he should be, you know, taking a little bit lesser of a role, and he might not even be on the team next year, or, you know, they look at maybe re-signing him for less money right down the line there, but to kind of make it work, because I don't think he's a useless defenseman. I just think he, you know, probably makes too much for what he is right now, and he's too high up in the lineup. That's what I think it is. But yeah, he has been struggling, and if you take a look here, like I mentioned, Keefe's love for T.J. Brodie will single-handedly kill us in the playoffs. Now, that may be true, that may not be true. Obviously, this is just his opinion. But McCabe and Benoit were our best shutdown pair, and now we have a guy who doesn't even touch guys in front of the net or in the corners playing shutdown minutes. And that's kind of what I mentioned. I mean, Brodie didn't throw any hits. He didn't have any blocks on Saturday. He's just doing a lot of cardio out there the last couple of games, and I don't think that's a good thing for one of your best defensemen. He's eating a lot of minutes. He's eating a lot of minutes like Riley. And mentioning Riley, I don't think we put enough stock into how good Morgan Riley is. And a lot of people talk about, especially last playoffs, yes, he is that guy, right? And a lot of people bought his jersey, all that good stuff, but he is the rock for the Leafs, right? Like, he is their rock back there. We don't give enough love or praise to Morgan Riley. Like, not even close. Not even close. And to look at some charts from Saturday too, T.J. Brodie by quite a bit was the Leafs' worst player on the ice. And I mentioned Morgan Riley there because if you look at the top of the graph, he was easily their best player, like, by a lot. Like, he is putting in great work. But yeah, T.J. Brodie, and on the defensive side of the puck is more of his struggles too, which is like, you're a defenseman. You gotta be that guy for the Leafs. You gotta be that top pairing guy, right? They like to play, not so much anymore, but they were at one point playing Brodie and Riley together, right? So Brodie has been leaned on for some big minutes in some big situations as well. So maybe give him less of a role, see if somebody else can take on more ice time. Fiddle with that before the playoffs, because I think this is becoming a bigger issue by the day. It really is as the playoffs approach. And, if the Leafs are going to play Boston and Florida, it's going to be one of those two, and they come at you hard and they come at you fast, right? So it's going to be interesting to keep our eyes on as the playoffs come, and what they do with Brodie. I don't think he's a bad player. I just think he makes too much for what he is right now, and he's playing too many minutes in a role that maybe he should be given a lesser role, less ice time. But unfortunately, I think it's a personnel thing with the Leafs, and they'll rejig their blue line next year, and as Treliving is able to put his fingerprints on the team, because he really wasn't able to do that in the timeline he had last summer. So it'll be interesting to keep tabs on, but I just think they have to do something with Brodie, and something's to be said too. We mentioned it in our video yesterday. Benoit. Where is Simone Benoit? We've been on the train for so long. He's a healthy scratch once again. He needs to come back into the lineup, and I think it could be for Brodie for a couple games. Maybe give Brodie a couple games off, let him come back, see where he's at, how he's feeling. Not saying that he's injured or anything like that, but sometimes a little bit of a break with the long schedule, the long season could help a player like that. So we'll see what they do, but I think T.J. Brodie either needs a little bit of a rest, a break, or just less minutes and less situation, less special teams, sorry. So we'll see what they do with that. Now, without further ado, let's get to Easton Cowan. He is setting records in the OHL. Obviously, fantastic season for Cowan. Came out of nowhere. Wasn't expected to be drafted that high. We know the whole story. We know the whole story with the Leafs. He's been a great story in the OHL this year. And from Kyle Cushman, Easton Cowan had 2 assists on Sunday again to extend his point streak to 34 games. That gives him the longest streak in London Knights franchise history. One more to match Bedard and Stankoven from the 2022-23 WHL season. And his totals in the OHL this year: 52 games played, 32 goals, 92 points, a plus 36, and 176 shots on goal. That is an impressive stat line. He is putting in some great work this OHL season. There is 68 games in the OHL season. I think London may have 2 or 3 left. This is the final week of the OHL regular season. He has 92 points. That's not bad. And the point streak continues and could continue if he ends up going back next year. But that's something I want to touch on before the end of the video. So it'll be interesting to keep tabs on him the rest of the way and what London does in the playoffs, because they're one of the best teams in the league. They're kind of fighting for Saginaw for that spot. And it's interesting because Saginaw is hosting the Memorial Cup, so you kind of have to make the final. Anyone who comes out of the East, if they play Saginaw in the final, they get an easy ride to the Memorial Cup automatically. London, not so much. London will have to win the conference, go to the final. So that'll be fun. They'll have to win the thing, right? So that will be fun to keep tabs on. Could be Mitch Marner did it. He was an OHL champion, so could Easton Cowan doing the same thing? It would be fun to watch. One thing I thought was interesting too is next year. Right, this is with Austin Matthews and William Nylander, both getting raises next season, in addition to Mitch Marner and John Tavares heading to their final year of the contract. The Leafs are looking for cheap contracts. It's no secret, right? They're going to need guys on ELCs making little money and league min to fill in these spots next year. So this could be a great opportunity for not only Easton Cowan next year, but Fraser and Mitten. I totally agree with this, and I think it could be a situation where we see Easton Cowan in the NHL next year, just based on how he's played in the OHL. And I think the OHL, in terms of schedule and style of play, gets you ready for the NHL faster than some other junior leagues, right? So I think he could make a little bit of an impact. I'm not saying he's going to score like 20 goals out of the gate, 30 goals, something like that, but I think he could be an impactful player if he was to play on the Leafs next year. He brings a lot of grit, that's overly used word, but speed and skill too. What he's done in the OHL this year has been great. In the final line too, Cowan will look to extend his historic point streak to 35 games on Friday when London hosts the Spitfires. And if you don't follow the OHL, the Winter Spitfires are not a good team this year. So I have no doubt in my mind that Cowan will extend that to 35 games, and that's going to be very, very fun to watch. And obviously he's now the franchise leader for the London Knights in terms of consecutive games with a point. He ties Dave Gilmore, I guess now he has 34. That is an old screenshot. So 34 games for Easton Cowan, going for 35. It's going to be great to watch, and hopefully he makes some noise in the playoffs. But let me know what you think of T.J. Brodie and the Leafs' defensive struggles, and let me know what you think of Easton Cowan. Is he a player that the Leafs could use in the lineup next year, and will he be ready for the NHL? I think it's something that they're going to look at very, very seriously, especially in training camp. But let me know your thoughts on it, and Nick and I will see you for another video tomorrow.